happens is a lot of times when we're ready to go for an interview, we get very, very nervous. And a lot of times we think we know what the employer wants you to look like. And so you fake it. You pretend that you're going to be the person they want so that you can get the job. And the truth is that they can smell it a mile away when you come in with pretense. And what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a situation where they start asking you questions because they can kind of feel like, this person is acting like I'm detail-oriented and all this, but you can tell by just the way you walked in and how you interacted that you may not be that detail-oriented person that you're presenting yourself as. So one of the things that I recommend is that you sit down and you write down what your strengths are. Figure out exactly what makes you you and a good employee, because you'll be different from the person that's sitting next to you in terms of your strengths and what you can bring to that job. And if you sit down and you write down all your strengths and you have some idea of who you are as an employee, you can walk into your interview and say, yeah, I'm going to be a darn good employee because my strengths are X, Y, and Z. And they'll be able to see that as I'm in conversation with the employer or the person interviewing me.
Great, that is very true. And my tip number 2 is to cultivate a positive identity. And with a little bit with what she was saying is that what you want to do is, businesses prepare their 30-second pitch when they're trying to make the deal. And that's exactly how you should envision yourself. Envision yourself as if you're going to make the deal and prepare the 30-second pitch. However, this is not the time for you to recite your resume. They don't want to know about everything that's on your resume. They want to know about what makes you different from the other candidates. And one of the things that I think is really important that might not be on your resume that you want to make sure that they know about. So for example, if there was someone who was applying to Ortega Counseling Center and you've done your job by preparing for the interview, you've already looked at the website. So you know that their focus is helping people, helping injured workers. So what you might want to say is, I enjoy meeting new people, learning about their stories, and helping them find a solution to any problem or concern that they might have. That would be a really good way for you to cultivate that positive identity. It's letting them know that you're comfortable speaking to people and that you can take care of a problem or one of the core issues that is handled by OCC.
Okay, so we'll go. So tip 2 is be prepared for hypothetical situations. So what happens a lot is during an interview you get asked questions about, how you would handle a certain situation or how you've handled a situation in the past. And you may already know what they want to hear. So you'll say, oh yeah, I'm very good at prioritizing. I can handle difficult situations. I've done that a lot in my past. And so an employer may say, okay, well, let me give you a situation, let's see what you would do. And so they may take, let's say, a situation where you're handling a difficult situation, where you're handling a difficult client. And they may say, okay, so you have a client that has come in, says that he's been calling has been calling the company for 2 hours. Nobody's answered the call. He's really upset because something went wrong with the service or the product that he got, and he's screaming and yelling and becoming irate. What do? You have to already know what to do. Because one of the things that they're looking at you at that given moment when they're giving you the hypothetical situation is they're seeing how comfortable are you with dealing with an uncomfortable situation even in that moment of the interview. Because they're making you uncomfortable by putting you in a difficult situation. So that's one thing that you should do. Depending on what kind of position you're going into, think of what could come up in that position that can be a difficult situation. Also, prioritizing. There's always a necessity to know how to prioritize. So an employer might say, okay, you're here to apply for this reception position. So here's what you have. You have a stack of things that the person that was before you left you for the day. Your boss said, don't call me or interact with me for the next 2 hours. I'm in a really busy in a meeting. You have the phone call going crazy, the phone calls coming in because the media caught something and now they're calling you so that you can get some information out to the media. What do? So you have to be able to know what would be your answer, what would be your take, and have something ready for that. So basically, more and more employers are asking hypothetical questions so that they can see if you can actually have an answer for that given situation at that moment, rather than I'm really good at prioritizing. Right?
Thank you. So my tip number 3 is to be prepared to respond to those common yet tough questions that are asked on a regular basis. I have a tip sheet that's available to you all, and it's common questions but tough questions, because a lot of times we answer in ways that we don't realize we're actually sabotaging our responses. So, for example, a very common question is, tell me a little bit about yourself, right? And so what we do is that we tend to rant on about, what we love to do in our spare time, and, it just gives them opportunities to seek and to ask questions that, perhaps you shouldn't be responding to in that moment. But another common question that's actually really difficult is when your prospective supervisor or employer asks you to share about a time that you had a difficult time communicating with either a coworker or your supervisor. Now, this is not the time for you to vent and give all the gory details about how that situation went. What they're really looking for is they're looking to see how you respond in tough situations. They want to know how you react in those situations where you find yourself with difficult conversations. So instead of focusing on the negative piece of it, focus on the positive outcome. What did you do to get out of that situation? Did you, you can say, I had a difficult situation with a coworker, and what I did was I asked if, she or he had a moment to speak with me, and we took a walk, or we went to go get a cup of coffee, and I said, I realized that we haven't been connecting or communicating well. Is there something, or what can I do differently so that we could have a better working relationship? That's a really great question to ask, because first, don't start accusing them of something. We want to be really cautious not to do that. They may not be aware that there's a lack in communication. But if you feel it, that's a good way of asking. And so, again, it's not the opportunity for you to rant. What they're looking for is, how do you behave in tough situations?
So, tip 3. Tip 3 is to always be prepared. To always be prepared with questions. So one of the things that we have told our nonprofit managers about their employees that are going, or somebody that's going out to interview, is we tell them, if you want to have questions prepared before you go to an interview, this is a good way of doing it. Tell a friend, hey, I have this interview, I've got this position. They'll start asking you questions. Really? Well, what does it pay? Where are you going to be working? I know that pay is a thing. Where are you going to be working? Are you going to have other coworkers in the same office? Basically what happens is that your friends are going to ask you questions about the position that you don't really know. So you can actually use some of those questions, write them down, and have them ready for your interview. And you can do that with all your friends, with your family members, etc. You'll start realizing that there's a lot of questions to be asked. And the ones that you want to know, that don't come as you're interviewing, they don't come up, then you can use them.